Joana Sequeira. She is a student here at the faculty, a sculpture student. She's now finishing her master's degree, and she's going to talk us about a Portuguese sculptor, António Paiva.
Good afternoon. Before starting, I would like to thank the University of Fine Arts of Lisbon for the opportunity to talk about the research I developed in the scope of the Master of Sculpture, which I awaited thanks. I also want to particularly thank Professor Marta Frade for the enormous interest shown in this investigation and for her invitation and confidence. The theme of this presentation is not only the theme chosen for my master's dissertation, but it's also a very important subject for my family and for the Portuguese culture. It is a monography about the sculptor António Paiva, who was my grandfather. The great people, useful to the country in the most diverse ways, are perpetuated in their works or in the remains of their actions. However, the human present does not always last. It rarely goes beyond the reduced cycle of friends and family. And that is why I am here today to talk a little about the life and work of my grandfather, sculptor and professor at this University of Fine Arts for 26 years. I never met my grandfather, and it was during this investigation that I got to know a little more about his person. From his sculptures, drawings, photographs, writings, and reports of those who had the opportunity to cross paths with him while he was alive. Born in 1926 in Alcácer do Sal into a traditional middle-class family, it was born in the same year of the military coup where a totalitarian and dictatorial policy was imposed in Portugal. It is said that from an early age, he showed himself to be a charismatic, curious, and human person in the sense of wanting to get involved and meet the most diverse people, from street sweepers to ministers of his time. These people are often represented in his sculptures, as we can see in this video. He soon came to Lisbon with his mother and brother, and after completing his studies, he worked in archaeological excavations as a draftsman for the late Vasconcelos Museum. He also worked in several sculptors ateliers, where he had the opportunity to be an apprentice with sculptors like Leopoldo Almeida, Barata Feio, Canto da Maia, and António Duarte. And it was thanks to Leopoldo Almeida, who convinced him to take a sculpture course here at the Escola de Belas Artes, that my grandfather continued his studies, and as soon as he finished the course, also became a professor of sculpture. António Paiva, during his years of study and professor of sculpture, had the opportunity to rent a studio space in Santos that still belongs to my family and where, as a sculptress, I work. And it is in this atelier that most of the original plasters of his sculptures are. This workspace was also where the sculptor socialized with his friends, mainly his two best friends, who were also artists and with a shared studio next to António Paiva's. They were the painter João Hogan and the sculptor Virgílio Domingos, who, in addition to friends, were the ones who participated in trips for implementation and inauguration of the works, as we can see in these videos that are shown here, filmed by the artist himself. Other artists were also welcome in his studio, such as José Noori, Sérgio Pombo, and even Almada Negreiros, among others. Preservation and conservation are initiated above all by the inventory of works, and it was precisely in this and in the analysis of some public works that the dissertation focused on. I consider it to be something valuable to be done, as his name falls into oblivion despite his vast work through all the country and even foreign countries. When analyzing the works, cleaning, photographing, measuring, and classifying, I realized the existence of the author's own language, where the figures are represented with elongated bodies, proportionally longer limbs, and small heads compared to the human anatomy. Structural lines are delicate and curved, providing a simplified body language. It is also notorious the inspiration in foreign authors such as Alberto Giacometti, Marino Marini, Modigliani, Henry Moore, among others. And that's why his language turns out to be unique, despite still inserted in what we idealize as modernist language. The particular nature of this reserved personality dictated an unusual behavior at the time, with works often not signed or dated, a fact that creates some difficulties in the investigation, namely in terms of chronological organization of his sculpture, but also created problems for other researchers in the attribution of authorship, as we found in a work referred to in my dissertation. Methodologically, and considering the dispersed biographical information available, the interviews with family members, colleagues, and former students, as well the use of public and private entities that own some of their works, allowed us to obtain more detailed and complete information regarding the life and work of this sculpture, namely to one or another case related to the work methodology used and most used materials and techniques, creative process, reference authors, artists, among other aspects. Reports that would be factually confirmed by the numerous cluster studies of his collection that we present here. It was necessary to carry out a unique and comparative work of analysis, historically contextualized in the artist's lifetime, considering the artistic currents of the time, as well the various experimental influences. The sculptural analysis carried out to not find a path typified by stabilized national or international artistic currents, making it difficult to frame his work. These difficulties, however, allowed a different look at this collection, more focused on the works themselves than their theoretical contexts, and simultaneously could discover a plastic expression with a distinct and unique originality in the national and international panorama. Regarding the plasters found in the studio, in the sculptor's house and elsewhere, I use a classification supported by the proposal of Marie-Thérèse Baudry et al., enabling a structured and organized classification for all sculptural methodologies used. We can conclude when carrying out the inventory of the sculptures that according to the parameters established in the compilation by Marie-Thérèse Baudry, António Paiva developed enough sculptures capable of covering all typologies and most categories and subcategories of sculptural classification proposed by the author. Among these different sculptural expressions regarding mimicry and representation of a queer character, it allowed us to observe a plastic capacity, which not only is versatile in formal approaches, but also in the technical capacities that cover the most diverse materials, including clay, plaster, stone, wood, resin, and plastic. But mostly all the original studies are made in plaster. This investigation has the purpose of being the beginning of a journey, which can be covered by other researchers or perhaps in the future, continued by me. With this dissertation and presentation, I intend to let you know the state of a sculptor forgotten in time, and that deserves our greatest attention and may continue this research or organize exhibition of his works. Now, I will leave you with some images and the video of his works that are in the possession of author's family for you to complete. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Joana, for your presentation.